Welcome to the Lurk Here podcast. My name is Bethany. Thank you again for joining us. It is 2025, and we've got some really big updates to this podcast. One being, we've got plenty more episodes coming. I'm excited about some incredible guests we have lined up for you all. And a little bit of a splash, a little bit of a plot twist here is that I'm introducing a co-host to this podcast. And the co-host is no other than Jorrel Batac, and he is here with us today. Hi, Jorrel.
Hello. What's up, everyone?
Listen, I thought 2025 would be so much cooler, so much more vibrant if I brought another voice into this. And this podcast is all about the lurkers. It's dedicated to those lurkers that want to be seen and heard, and we want to shine a light on them. And I couldn't think of a better person to bring into the fold, someone that I talk to often about a lot of this industry stuff and what's going on in the world, and love to pick his brain. So Jorrel is going to be co-hosting this podcast, and I want you to hear more from him and kind of who he is today. And let's just jump right in. Jorrel, you've been traveling a lot.
Yeah, too much.
You've been all over the place.
Still jet lagged, I swear.
If anybody has followed his social media or his LinkedIn, you'll know he's been in a few different countries this year, especially towards this last leg of the year. So I'd love to know, where have you been and what are you doing? Can you enlighten the people about sort of the mission that you've been on the last few months or last year or so?
Yeah, no, it's been quite the journey. Officially launched my global consulting agency in the last quarter, and through that process was able to join in on multiple events. I spoke at 2 international conferences, but in total attended 5 different events in 5 different countries, which is mind-blowing to think about. Mostly Southeast Asia, but I got a couple little stints in Portugal, which was incredible. Shout out to the ESI folks. But yeah, mostly Southeast Asia, China, Malaysia, Japan, Korea.
Sorry, well, we were in Indonesia together, so we missed that. We were in Korea this year. Thankfully, we got to spend some of that time together. So it was Korea for my first time and Indonesia for my first time. So Jorrel really helped me sort of see those countries. And I was noticing when we were traveling together, obviously, Jorrel packs very light. He's a great packer. He encouraged me, skip the baggage claim. But I also noticed that when we had any sort of free time, we'd split up and kind of do our own things. And I love to find card shops. So I was like Pokemon hunting most of the time. And you would end up at like a vinyl store or a music store or looking for things like that. Is that normal for you? Do you do that in every country you go to? What kind of things do you do in your free time when you get to travel to these places for work?
Vinyl, analog, traveling light, all of those things are in some ways a little bit, tied to my philosophy in life in general. Traveling light is super important. I think it's important not to carry a lot of baggage with you, because in so many different ways, and just to try to be present. And part of being present for me is really, sitting in and observing and soaking in, the atmosphere and the environment, especially when you're in a different country and culture. There's so many things to really absorb. And part of that is, for me, it's music, and music is super important. I mean, it's the vibes. It's the vibes of energy, but it's also reflective of the vibes of, where you're at and where you're visiting. And so I try to pick up, a couple vinyl records that are typically super local. So I'll ask, whoever's there for some recommendations of, really local music. And a lot of times I've never heard of them. They're special to the community and the culture, and I take that home, and it's a way of kind of memorializing the experience of being in that space, and some of the conversations that I end up having too with the folks that are helping me find the vinyl. I mean, you end up down random corners, and they send you into different spots that are local that you may not see online. It's all part of the experience of being in the community and then listening to the community. Being analog too is just not relying on technology. I mean, obviously I'll use maps and stuff just to get around and make sure I know where I'm going. But I like to just walk and be, sometimes I'll put music on and kind of wander around, but just discover. And I think that's part of it is when you go to these countries, it's really easy to look up a top list and, these are the top places, and they end up in the really touristy spots. But what I really like doing is just, putting some music on, maybe bring out my camera and just walk and see where I end up. And, you end up in the most random places that you wouldn't think of. And to me, that ritual is important because it helps me really anchor in, especially what I'm doing now with my business and life in general, is just to wander and appreciate the experience, all along the way.
I remember literally walking in Korea with you, and we came across a bridge, and at one point I looked around and you were gone. I don't know if you ever realized I was gone, but it had taken a while because I think we were both in our own lanes, and I was sort of doing something similar, just trying to be present with where I was and grateful for where I'd come and how I got there, and sort of lost in thought and sort of letting it take me, my legs with me, and just, almost move with it. But sometimes that's where I get like those aha moments too. Those are where things start to click for me, or maybe more so settle. Is the word. Are there any sort of moments or experiences recently that you felt like very deeply connected to, or almost like a deja vu kind of moment, like this is supposed to happen, or I've seen this before? I feel like, you're traveling a lot and almost like shifting timelines and time zones too. Like it's got to feel a little trippy. And I imagine the people you meet too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had so many of these experiences where things just kind of, like you said, click, and then you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. And I've had so many of these experiences just throughout my life and journey, and I guess it just depends on how deep of the rabbit hole you want to go down. But I think in particular, just more recently, I was wandering Japan, and life has gone through some crazy transitions lately, starting a business and just trying to make moves. And so being in Japan was partially for work, but also just because I wanted to wander. And I wandered around with my camera and just taking photos, not really planning on where I was going. And what was interesting is on my way back, out of nowhere, deja vu just hit extremely hard. Like it knocked me back. I had to like pause for a second, and I recognized pretty quickly that I had a dream about it, ages ago. And that moment just kind of clicked. Actually, even before that, I was in Korea, and shout out to Kespa for the invite. But I have a thing with the number 33, and some of the homies know this. And even during that trip, in different areas where we were wandering around, 33 would pop up. And so it's like little indicators, I feel like, that just kind of pop up and remind you that you're on the right path. You and I have talked about this before. To me, I'm totally a hippie at heart, but I feel like life moves in cycles, but I also feel like it moves in spirals. And you're not in the same place as you were before, but sometimes life kind of lines up in certain moments where it's similar, and then it just kind of clicks. Like it's really hard to describe because I think it's more experiential than anything. But and part of that is in order to feel that, and that's where it goes back to being present and seeing and hearing. Because if you're clouded in your mind, you're clouded in your judgment, you're just caught up in something, then you're less likely to tune into some of that stuff. But I think part of it is letting go, being present. And when you are empty, then that's when things kind of fill you up with symbols and signs like that.
The spiral actually gets me through a lot. We've talked about it often, but not knowing whether you're going on a spiral up or down is actually kind of satisfying in a way, because you could be on any point of it at any time, depending on your perspective almost. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to choose that things are spiraling upwards, it's sort of like a glass half full in my mind. It's always possible. And you can spiral down if you want to too.
I think you said something earlier that really clicked, the idea that it's like perspective, right? You could spiral upwards, you could spiral downwards. And part of that is who's having that perspective. And the only way to get perspective is to step outside of yourself. And to me, the best way to do that is, to bounce off of other people. And that's why, to me, community is so important. And, between the fellows program, between, the consulting agency that I operate now and own now, it's all driven by this concept of building community and cultivating community. Because I think, the one thing that I've learned through spiritual practice is that the ego definitely isn't your amigo, because you get caught up in that. You get caught up in your own image, your own whatever. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the self to me is a little bit of an illusion, because you kind of create this idea of what you think you are. And what I've found with creating these, started with local, regional, and then scaled it to national and global, the community of practice model is really important, because it provides people a safe space to be able to just share. And when you share things, both positive and negative, and you let all of that out, and then other people are able to see it, they recognize pretty quickly that some of those thoughts that you have are pretty limiting. I mean, one of my favorite things that I loved about, a lot of these communities of practice is really playing that role of facilitator and coach, and you get this too as a coach, like being a coach isn't telling you how to do things. It's not, this is the way it should be done, or, I think being a coach is about encouraging and positive reinforcement and really just listening at the end of the day. Because when someone, like I think of a lot of these leaders who are doing some really incredible things, a lot of times they're just getting in their own way, because it's the thoughts that they have that they think they can't do things. And once they start kind of sharing that and externalizing that, and having someone like a coach or a mentor to be able to recognize it from the outside, I think really quickly that thought will dissolve, because you recognize that it's just something that you're telling yourself, but it's not real. And that goes back, full circle with this idea of being spiritual. I think the more that you can empty your thoughts and empty your mind, and be present and see things for what they are, that's really, I think, where you can find that success and find that the journey, the path kind of unlocks, is when you let go a bit. Because I don't think it's a climb. I think it's a flow. I think you're riding a wave more than you're climbing a mountain. I mean, because mountains are one thing and we can all climb, but I think it's constantly changing. I think it's much more fluid than that.
So you made me think of something else too, because I see this in you when we are together IRL, but also sometimes the way you talk and break down things too, which is slowing down is incredibly underrated as a sort of way to process the world and your work and your life. Even just reminding myself that sometimes like clears things for me. And I also think it brings a sense of calm to people around me as well. But I've noticed that, and this is obviously true, that things that are scared or living in fear tend to move very quickly and fast, right? And the things in nature and around us that are moving slowly and sort of diligently, and almost seasonally, right? If you look at it in nature, is the most calming and grounding, and it's the most clarity there is. It also feels very safe. And so I've tried to sort of shift my mindset to slowing down, and I've noticed that it affects other people like greatly, sometimes more than it affects me in a way, that people notice or want to be around the energy. They feel safe. They feel like they can share something. They feel like they can open up, or they can ask for something that might be hard to ask somebody else. So I think it's also listening skills and things like that develop over time. But this is the same in my coaching work too. If you can slow down the game for somebody, you can break something down, the game gets easier. It makes more sense, even in sports, right? Just watching gameplay, slowing it down, you look like you're performing peak, but you've actually just slowed down the game so much that you can predict, you can see things coming. That sort of feels like life too. And when you just like slow it all down, which I guess is also your analog sort of feel is what it reminded me of.
Yeah, and honestly, this is why I've loved working with you. You've become more than just a colleague. You become a lifetime friend for sure. Is because every time we've had conversations, we're both at different points in our lives, and it's always been a very reflective process. I mean, there's been times I remember when we first started the U.S. Federation, I was the one running and gunning everything, and I was stressing out. And I remember, this is before you joined in. I remember venting to you. I was like freaking out. I was all over the place. And at the time, you were like on that slow roll, and you had really just intentional slow energy, and that really kind of helped me see, past all of the BS that I was dealing with, is because you were very present, and that reminded me that I needed to be present, and and then I roped you into the craziness. But I think that's part of it is, and that goes back to the idea of community and mentors and just people in general is, we have to balance each other out. And yeah, you're right. I think it's all fear. It's fear, fear of not knowing. It's fear of failure, and all those things end up getting in your way.
Yeah.
But if you slow down, let go, and just let it flow, I think things just tend to happen, rather than you trying to force it to happen.
I'm curious, is there anything like that you feel like you're still trying to like discover in life?
Oh, I think every day is a day of discovery. There's just so many things to learn, especially when you're, stepping. I mean, I think you and I are both now stepping into this world of doing our own thing, right? I've followed, the lines for quite some time, and I've played by the rules. But I think there's always been something underneath that's been itching me to like step outside of the box. And I think I've kind of done that creatively by like riding the line a little bit. But now, I mean, it's all just open, and there's nothing holding back. And I think what I'm feeling now is, there's a whole new way of doing things, it doesn't have to be the status quo. It doesn't have to be how other people are doing it. I think it's just the way that, I want to do things, the way you want to do things. I think we just do it because it makes sense. And and when that, it doesn't need explanation, to me, that feels so much more authentic. Like I don't have to explain my actions. I don't have to, tell people or ask for permission. It's just, I'm just doing it because it feels right. And that to me, and that state, is a constant state of discovery, because instead of prioritizing, let's say KPIs or, metrics or some BS like that, I think it's more about being real. It's building, authentic connections with people. And then who knows what happens after that? Because I feel like if you start with that, and you start with such a core authenticity, then things will just kind of groove after that, and things will happen. I think the more intentional you are, from the get-go, the bigger and broader and more impactful your actions will be.
What do you think success looks like?
Yeah, success, I feel like has changed, and I'm sure it has changed, a little bit for you too. I think when I was a little bit younger, success was like, let's radically break down the system. Yeah, that was checked pretty hard, because, I think I learned pretty quickly that it was a balance. But then I kind of ended up on the other side of that, where it was like, okay, I'm just going to follow the status quo, buying a house, get a big paying job, try to build all that cloud. And I recognize that's a little empty too. I think now with where I'm at, success is really just having the freedom to spend time with people you love and care about. And I think having the choice to do what you want when you want, like that to me is success. I mean, you could be broke, but as long as you have a choice, then I think that's really the success in itself.
We're very similar right now, where we're able to do our own thing and have our own brand and represent ourselves the way we want to. And I've seen that pop up for you several times now too, just sort of the way you move and the way that you express yourself. And I would imagine that, being able to feel some of that freedom outside of just the work that you do impacts the work that you do in so many different ways. Are you feeling some of that sort of 2025 energy with this newfound freedom this year as well?
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm excited about, relaunching this podcast with you is, to me, what I've valued the most throughout all of my interactions, my entire journey in my career has always been the important conversations, and authentic conversations that I've had with people. It doesn't even have to be about gaming, esports, or any of that. It's just about life. I mean, just like you and I are doing right now, just talking and having a conversation, because those moments that you share with people, those really authentic and super real moments, those to me are those metrics of success, because that's what you take with you. It's not, like you said, the organization that you grew together, or whatever project or program you've built up. Like, all of those things to me are transitory, because they come and go and they change. But what doesn't change is, the heart and soul that you put into just connecting with someone. Because that, I feel like, is forever.
I'm excited to actually have you as a co-host and just pick people's brains, because man, I kind of feel bad for our guests. I think our guests are going to have to be pretty strong, but I think they're, the ones that we have lined up, you and I both are excited about them. We've got some big names, people that will be recognized in our space and community. But I think what our audience is going to love is us really deep diving with them, because industry is one thing, and we have enough podcasts around there that will give you all the news and insights and the biz dev of everything happening. But Jorrel and I tend to speak to people and want to learn and glean from people sort of the depths of where they're coming from their work.
Exactly.
And so you're going to hear a lot more of that. And likely a lot of these themes will continue as Jorrel and I sort of think through things more spiritually, and also future forward as well, of where all this goes and how we get there together. So join us. Jorrel will be a regular, and he's got some great questions, I'm sure, lined up for our guests. So
yeah, I won't just be asking questions. I'll be diving deep into your soul.
Thank you so much for joining, but also welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm excited.
We will see you all soon, and we can't wait to have some more amazing guests on our podcast and enjoy 2025 and beyond.